Hey, what's up everybody? Jared Degatere here with MLC CAD Systems. Let's talk about designing sheet metal components in the cloud by leveraging the power of the 3D Experience platform. In particular, an application on the platform called xSheetMetal. Now, xSheetMetal is part of a family of connected apps on the 3D Experience platform called xApps. And these xApps are all cloud-based, so they never require any installation or updates, and they're always available to use anywhere with any device that has an internet connection. These apps include xDesign, which is a prismatic modeling tool, xShape, which is an organic freeform modeler, and xSheetMetal, which of course allows us to create our sheet metal components. Now, I also want to point out that all three of these applications can work seamlessly together, just like everything else on the platform. So there's never any problem with taking something created in xSheetMetal and then modifying it inside of xDesign or vice versa. Those applications all communicate back and forth very seamlessly. Let's look at an example here. We've got an existing compressor that has been modeled using xDesign. And what we're going to do is create a sheet metal cover for the assembly. And that sheet metal cover is going to look something similar to this. I have it kind of highlighted in red just to kind of give everybody an idea of what it is that we're going to be tackling today. A few things I'll highlight along the way here as we go through this demonstration is just how easy this software is to use, how intuitive it is, how we can build intelligence into our designs, and of course how we can collaborate with other members of our team. Super important these days is just having effective collaboration with your team members. So now I'll go ahead and flip over into my web browser. And I want to point out that this is just Firefox running right here, nothing crazy. I've gone ahead and logged in at 3dexperience.com and opened up the xSheetMetal application. Now here's the compressor that we've got to design the cover for. And the first thing I'll do is come down to my action bar here at the lower portion of my screen, and I'll insert a component. Once we have that component inserted, I'll go ahead and rename it, and we'll just call this compressor cover. And then we'll double click it to activate that component. And now we're editing that particular component within the context of this assembly. So you can see how the rest of the components have turned into a transparent display. And that allows me to distinguish between the compressor cover that I'll be designing and the rest of the parts in the assembly. So to get started with my design, I'm going to open up a sketch on the front face of this base plate. And to do that, I'll simply select the face and then use this flyout tool that suggests likely actions that I would take. And once I select the sketch and enter into this sketch, it's going to rotate so that the face that I selected is now flat with my screen. This makes it a lot easier for me to sketch. You'll also notice that the sketch tab of the action bar is what is now selected, which gives me all of the different sketch tools that I might want to use. In this case, I want to start off with sketching a line. So I'll just go ahead and grab that and sketch a horizontal and vertical line. Now, right now, these lines are not defined, so they can still move back and forth. I haven't told them how long they're going to be. And inside of these xApps, it's really easy to fully define your sketches because instead of having to grab a dimensioning tool, you can simply select the line entity itself and the appropriate dimension shows up. So it's really intuitive and really easy to fully define your dimensions. Now that I've entered in those two dimensions, these are black, so you can tell that they're now fully defined, meaning I'm not missing any dimensions anymore. Now I'm ready to extrude this, and to do that, it's as simple as clicking on one of these entities and using this flyout toolbar again to select the appropriate command. Once again, I want to point out that this context toolbar here is going to only suggest relevant commands. So the software is very intuitive and allows you to select the appropriate commands very easily. This will open up the extrusion property dialog, and from here I can define things like what I want the fixed geometry of my sheet metal part to be. That's going to dictate which part of the sheet metal flat pattern is going to stay stationary. I can change up the sketch orientation to control where the thickness is, and then control the overall extrude length. And I'll change that up. I want to build in some intelligence into this design, and I always want my extrusion length to go from one face of this base plate to the other. And now the great thing about this is that if I come back and make a change to this base plate, such as changing up the width, my component that I'm designing is always going to update and maintain this same dimension. I'll go ahead and confirm. That looks good according to the preview. And there we have it, our first sheet metal component, or our first sheet metal feature. Moving along with our design, what we want to do is add some additional walls on this component coming in the Y direction. And to do that, once again, it's as simple as selecting an edge and then using that context menu to add a wall. From here, we can define the total length of that wall, and I'll even create another wall on the other side of this component simply by clicking on that edge as well. One thing I'd like to incorporate here is a bit of clearance. I'd like to offset this bend to where it's not right in line with the edge that I selected, but rather offset by 6 millimeters. And that's very easy to control here inside of the clearance command. All right, our design's starting to take shape now. And moving along, what we'd like to do is include another wall moving off of this edge and that edge. And we'd like that wall to only be formed along the section that will interlap with the wall that we just created. So let's take a look at how we can tackle that design challenge. Once again, I'll use the wall tool directly from the context menu. I'll go ahead and select the other edge that we'd want to incorporate here. And we're going to use limiting geometry to very easily come in and drag the wall into position. And we can even use this nice little ruler here to make an appropriate dimensional selection. So real nice and easy to control the extents of the wall for that piece of sheet metal. Now for this particular wall, I'd like it to butt right up against the back portion of the previous wall that we created. And to do that, we can tackle that using our clearance command. We've just got to simply come in and select a clearance value. And that looks pretty good here. All right, now in this particular instance, I actually didn't want to make this wall as long as it is. So fortunately for us, it's very easy to come back and edit these features simply by double-clicking on them. And here I can change the height of the wall, and that looks much better. That's actually what I was looking for initially. All right, so that looks great. Moving on, what we'd like to do is actually taper the top portion of this and kind of cut off these corners, because it's really just some additional unnecessary space that we have. It's not really enclosing anything. All of the other components inside of our assembly could be enclosed even if we lopped those corners off. So let's take a look at how we can do that. And once again, we'll use that context toolbar. I'll just select the edge of the corner and use the chamfer command. Now that that edge is selected, I can expand that selection to include the other edge. And let's go ahead and rotate into a view where we can tell how far down we'd like to come with this chamfer. Remember, we don't want to encroach on any of the other components that are inside of this assembly. So we'll just click on the white dot and drag it down until it reaches an appropriate level. And in this case, 95 looks like it's about right. So we'll go ahead and release it right there. All right, that looks pretty nice. And we can continue and move on with our design now. Now this cover that we're making, we want to incorporate a tab at the top. That's just going to be kind of a small short tab that's going to jut out into here with a bolt hole so we can bolt on another piece to this component. And up until now, all we've done so far is just selected an edge and brought out an entire wall. But what happens when we want to draw something a bit more specific? What we can do in these cases is open up a sketch on this top face and draw an actual profile. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit, guys, just so everybody can see how we're oriented before getting back into that particular view. Now I'm going to introduce the shortcut toolbar, and you can access this simply by hitting the S key. And depending on the environment you're in, will dictate what tools are available for you. In my case, I'm just going to use this line. And I want to incorporate an arc now at the end of this. And you can switch very easily back and forth between the line and the arc by hitting the A key. Now I'm in arc mode. I'll wrap this around, and I'm back into line mode, and I can continue with my sketch. So really quick, really intuitive. I'll access that shortcut key again to use my circle command and pop one of those right here in the center of that arc. Now all I've got left to do is dimension this. And you'll notice as I dimension, all I'm doing is clicking on the entities themselves, and the dimensions populate for me, making it really easy. Once we have this sketch fully defined, you'll notice it turns black, letting me know that I'm not missing any dimensions. It's always good practice to fully define all of your sketches. And I'll confirm that particular sketch. Let's get into a nice isometric view from here. And we'll go ahead and access the wall command through the context menu yet again. This time, instead of selecting the edge, we're going to use the sketch option. Once I select the sketch option, we simply come onto our graphics pane and select the sketch that we like to use. And we can control which material side is going to be up or down and confirm our command. That tab looks great. That's just where I want it. And now we can continue on with our design work. Now, if you've noticed, inside of our compressor, we've got an electric motor, and that's going to generate a decent bit of heat. So one of the things we want to incorporate into this design is some ventilation. And to do that, I'll go ahead and just open up a sketch on the back face of this component, and we'll use the center line slot tool just to make a nice ventilation feature. Drop that into position, and let's go ahead and make sure it's centered with a sketch relation. All right, now we're ready to make a cut with this particular profile. And typically what you'll do in most CAD modelers is you'll have to select another feature somewhere. Not inside of xSheetMetal or xDesign or any of the X apps. You simply can select inside of the contour here and then use the context menu to select a cutout. And one of the great things about xSheetMetal is that you can actually link this to the thickness of the sheet metal part that you have. So that way, if your thickness ever changes, the cutout is going to update automatically. So once again, we're building intelligence into this design. That's our base feature, and now what we want to do is pattern that feature. And I'm going to access my pattern tool by yet again clicking on my S key. Notice it's different from the sketch environment. It now lists relevant commands for the standard modeling environment. Now go ahead and create a pattern. Give it a reference direction. We'll go for 5 instances and a spacing of 50 millimeters. Now this is in the wrong direction right now, and I can switch that up really easily simply by clicking on this arrow. All right, that ventilation feature looks like it'll do the trick now. And this design on this particular portion of the sheet metal cover is actually complete now. And we're ready to mirror this over. And to do that, I'll access my mirror command from my shortcut menu. Now all I have to do is select a plane. And because I drew this part symmetrically, it's really easy to do that. And this mirrors over all of the geometry that I just created. And now any of the changes that happen on this side of the component will automatically be propagated to the other side. So our design's really coming along now. Let's take a look at what the flat pattern is going to look like. To access that flat pattern, once again, right there within a very easy mouse click, you can access that context menu. So here's our flat pattern. This looks pretty good, but there's one area in this corner where we have some sharp corners, and we might want to do something about that. So let's go ahead and refold our part. And what we're going to do next is access the corners command and apply some corner treatments. Right there, back at easy reach at the context menu. And from here, we can select which corners and what type of corner relief we'd like to apply, whether circular, square, or even make a custom sketch. And in our case, we're just going to keep it circular with a radius of 10 millimeters, and we're going to let the software do some work for us. We're going to have it select all the corners. And now we can confirm. So let's zoom back in and take a look at what this looks like now. Now our corner looks great. It's got a nice circular cutout. And if we access our flat pattern again, we can see that it's a perfect circle right here where that corner would be. So that looks great. All right, moving on, we've got one more finishing touch that we might want to make to our design. We're going to add some holes that are going to penetrate from this outer wall through the tab of the inner wall. So I'll access this sketch command. And what we're going to do is add a circle right here in the top left corner. And in our case, we actually want this circle to propagate at the top left, right bottom, and right top. So ordinarily, that would require you to either do a pattern or possibly just create those entities manually. But what you can do inside of these X apps is leverage something called machine learning. So I'm going to click right here on suggestions, and it's actually going to suggest to me, based on similar geometry, where I might want other sketch circles to be for me. So this is super powerful stuff. This is some advanced AI that's happening, and the great thing about it is that it gets better the more you use it. And you can even come in and modify and show similar drop locations. And this is actually what I'm looking for right here. So I want those sketch entities to propagate right there, and now I'm done with it by using some advanced machine learning. Super cool, super powerful stuff right here. Now I want to create a cut, so I'll go ahead and use that context menu to create my cut, and we'll confirm. Now once this cut is finished, you'll see that I actually just linked it to the thickness, so it didn't cut through everything. And what I want to do is actually have this cut propagate throughout the entire model here, so I can get back into it very easily. And I'll toggle off the link to thickness, and here I can define my limit types. In this case, we're going to go up to last. And that's going to make this cut go through the entire model, which is what my design intent is in this case. All right, so this is looking really good. The design is now complete, but let's take a look at what might happen if we want to make a design change. So let's go ahead and flip back to our original upper level assembly. And let's say we want to change the width up for this base plate. So I'll go ahead and double click on that base plate to activate it. And we'll locate it inside of our design manager and modify the sketch. So right now it has a value of 500, right? What if we want to change that to 600? So we'll go ahead and modify that, right? Pretty common, to go through multiple design iterations. But what's going to happen to our compressor cover that we just designed? Let's go ahead and get back into the compressor cover. And we're going to solve, which means we're going to recalculate all of the model geometry here. So let's go ahead and recalculate that and see what happens for us. So now, if you just saw that, our sheet metal cover that we designed automatically updated based off of the design changes that we made to the base plate. So it's this type of design intelligence that we can build into our models that can really speed us up when we're going through various design iterations. Now this model is complete. I'm going to flip back into the main assembly, and we're going to go ahead and save our work. Now, once again, all this is saved on the cloud, so you never have to worry about losing any of this work or anything like that. It's all safe and absolutely secure. And now that our work is done, let's take a look at some of the collaboration tools that we can use within the 3D Experience platform. You can access some of these tools directly from within the X apps simply by selecting the Tools tab of your action bar and then choosing to share to a community. And from here, I can immediately share this design to the community of my choice and collaborate with my colleagues. I'll go ahead and add a description on here, just stating that I'd like someone to go ahead and review this design. And after this, I'll go ahead and publish. And this is going to get posted right on a community where it's very easy for my coworkers to see what I've got going on, and we can easily discuss the particular design at hand. And communities are also very secure. You can control who has access to them. You can control who can post and get very granular with the permissions that you might have. Let's go ahead and take a look at what one of these communities looks like. Here's the post that I just created directly from within the xSheetMetal application. And if we click on this, or if any of my colleagues click on this, we can easily open it up in the 3D Play application. And the 3D Play application is something that everyone on the platform has access to. So even if you're trying to collaborate with someone who's not necessarily inside of the engineering group and has access to all of the design tools, they can still review that design by opening it up inside of 3D Play. And while 3D Play is considered essentially a viewing application, there are quite a few tools that you can use inside of here. For instance, you can come in and measure the particulars of your design, just to make sure your dimensions are accurate. And you can also add annotations and markups to the design and share that with other members of your team. So for instance, let's say we want somebody to take a look at this tab and make sure the dimensions are proper. We can go ahead and post that markup. And now all of our colleagues will be able to see that inside of that 3D Swim community post that I had originally created. From here, other members of your team can view those markups that you created and comment on the post and inform everyone of what actions they're going to take. So in this case, let's go ahead and say that we'll take a look at the tab and make modifications as needed. So what did we just see? Let's do a little recap. We saw how we could use xSheetMetal to very easily design sheet metal components in a cloud environment with intuitive time-saving features. We saw how we could incorporate automatic design updates and machine learning to empower us further. And on top of all of that, we can easily and effectively collaborate with our team members. Thanks so much for watching. If you're curious to see what else xSheetMetal and the 3D Experience platform can do for your company, check out some of our other YouTube videos, and as always, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions.